Welcome to this powerful moment on the Path of Truth channel. I'm so grateful to have you here, tuning in to a message that I believe will touch your soul deeply and resonate in a way that could transform your life. Today, we delve into something incredibly important, something that every chosen one must understand. The weight of the words you speak and the vows you make, especially when they're made in haste. This isn't just a message for today, but a timeless reminder of the consequences of promises spoken without seeking God's will first. We're about to explore a truth that, once embraced, will shape the way you think, speak, and act in every aspect of your life. Wisdom is often described in the Bible as a precious and invaluable gift, one that should be sought above all else. Proverbs 4:7 says, "The beginning of wisdom is this, get wisdom. Though it cost all you have, This verse underscores the importance of pursuing wisdom with all that we have, recognizing that true wisdom is not easily or cheaply attained. It demands effort, humility, and a willingness to submit to God's guidance. 5 echoes this sentiment, offering a promise that if anyone lacks wisdom, they should ask God, and He will give it generously. This invitation is open to all who recognize their need for divine insight and understanding. Biblical wisdom is not about accumulating knowledge for its own sake, but about aligning our hearts with God's will. It is through wisdom that we learn to hear His voice, make decisions that honor Him, and live in a way that reflects His love. And as we reflect on these scriptures, we are reminded that wisdom is not merely a tool for navigating crises, but a way of life that brings us closer to God and His perfect will. So before we dive into this powerful lesson, I ask you to do one. Comment the number 99 below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can stay updated with more life-changing content on the path of truth. Your journey towards deeper wisdom begins now. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever spoken words in the heat of the moment, only to watch them unravel your world? Have you ever made a bold promise, driven by emotion or passion, only to later realize that you hadn't sought God's will before speaking? How many times have you felt the crushing weight of a vow made impulsively that you could never take back? If you've ever felt the regret of hasty words, in today's message, we are going to explore just how dangerous it is to make vows without wisdom, to speak without first submitting our hearts and minds to God's guidance. There's a story in the Bible about a man named Jephthah, a warrior chosen by God to lead Israel in battle against the Ammonites. He was a man of valor, called for a great purpose, but he made a fatal mistake. A vow spoken in zeal but lacking the wisdom to understand the consequences. Jephthah, in his desire for victory, made a vow to the Lord. If God would deliver the Ammonites into his hands, whatever came out of his house to meet him when he returned in triumph, he would sacrifice it as a burnt offering. This vow, made in the heat of the moment, came from a place of passion and zeal, but it was not guided by wisdom. Jephthah didn't pause to seek God's will before making such an extreme promise. And when he returned home victorious, it was his daughter, his only child, who came out to meet him. His heart shattered because he had promised to sacrifice whatever came out of his door, not realizing it would be the very one he loved most in this world. This story is more than just a historical account. It's a powerful lesson for all of us chosen ones. It teaches us that words once spoken cannot be undone. They carry the power to shape our destiny, for better or for worse. In Jephthah's case, his words brought unimaginable pain, not just to him, but to his beloved daughter. What began as a passionate promise turned into a tragedy. So I urge you to reflect on this story deeply. What promises have you made in your life, in moments of passion or zeal, without considering the weight of your words? How many times have we, like Jephthah, spoken without first seeking God's guidance? It's time for us to wake up to the reality that our words are not trivial. They are powerful, they are life-shaping, and they have consequences. Proverbs 81 tells us that death and life are in the power of the tongue. Your words are like seeds. What you speak into the world, what you promise, will grow and bear fruit. But what kind of seeds are you planting? Are you planting seeds of life, hope, and wisdom? Or are you planting seeds of destruction, regret, and pain? When we speak without considering God's will, we are sowing seeds that can lead to consequences we may not even be able to foresee. Just like Jephthah's vow, your words can lead you down a path of devastation, regret, and sorrow if they are not rooted in wisdom and God's guidance. Let's stop for a moment and reflect. How often have you spoken words, made promises, or made decisions without truly seeking God's will? How many times have you acted impulsively, driven by your emotions or desires, without asking God for His direction first? In the Bible, in Proverbs 3:5c, we are instructed to trust in the Lord with all our hearts and to lean not on our own understanding. In all our ways, we are to submit to Him, and He will make our paths straight. But how many times do we forget to do this? How many times do we lean on our own understanding, thinking that we know what's best, when in reality we are blind to the greater plan that God has for us? Jephthah's story is a powerful reminder of the importance of submitting our ways to God. When he made his vow, he didn't take the time to ask God what he truly wanted. Instead, Jephthah thought he could earn God's favor through a grand promise, but God doesn't work that way. His favor isn't something we earn through our promises. It's something we receive through obedience, submission, and seeking His will. When you are faced with life-changing decisions, big or small, it's crucial to first seek God's guidance. It's essential to ask Him, Lord, what is your will for me in this situation? And then we must wait. We must listen. We must allow God to speak into our hearts, guiding us on the right. Remember, chosen ones, our zeal for God is important, but zeal without wisdom is dangerous. Jephthah's zeal led him to make a promise that God never asked for, and because of that, he caused harm not only to himself but to his daughter. How many times have we, in our own zeal, acted without wisdom, without first seeking God's will, and caused harm to others in the process? Passion alone is not enough. What God desires is wisdom. He desires for us to listen to His voice, to follow His lead, and to be obedient to His command. So today, I urge you to reflect on the power of your words. Think about the promises you have made and the words you have spoken. Have you sought God's will before you spoke? Or have you spoken in haste, driven by emotion or passion, without considering the consequences? It's time for us to change our mindset. Let's stop making impulsive promises. Let's stop speaking words we haven't prayed over. Let's begin to speak with wisdom, with understanding, and with the guidance of the Holy Spirit. Let us master the power of our words so that we can speak life, hope, and truth into every situation we face. Your words matter, your promises matter, and the consequences of those promises are real. So, I encourage you today, chosen ones, to think carefully about the words you speak, to seek God's will before you make any vow, and to remember the story of Jephthah as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the weight of our words and the importance of speaking with wisdom. Stay tuned, because this journey is just beginning. We have so much more to learn, and God is ready to reveal more wisdom to us as we continue on this path of truth. When you reflect on the story of Jephthah, something deep within your spirit may stir. Perhaps you can relate to the feeling of being so deeply committed to a cause that you would do anything to ensure its success. But, my dear chosen ones, the truth is that zeal alone, no matter how intense, cannot always lead us to the place we need to be. It may take us to places of sacrifice, places of hardship, but without wisdom, we risk. In the pursuit of devotion, we sometimes lose sight of the fact that true devotion is not about how much we give, but how deeply we listen and follow God's voice. You may have found yourself at a crossroads, trying to decide which path to take. Maybe you're facing a difficult decision, feeling torn between what you want and what God wants for you. It's so easy to make promises to ourselves and to God in the heat of the moment, without considering the weight of those words. Jephthah's story is a powerful reminder of the importance of wisdom in every step we take. His tragic mistake teaches us that the size of our sacrifice does not guarantee God's favor, but a heart surrendered to Him in obedience does. So let me ask you, are you seeking God's will, or are you, like Jephthah, rushing into decisions out of your own zeal, without seeking the wisdom and understanding that only He can provide? The world may tell you that sacrifice is the way to prove your devotion, that giving more is the key to receiving favor. But God is not interested in our sacrifices if they are not done out of a place of obedience to His will. He longs for hearts that are yielded to Him, hearts that are willing to listen and act according to His purposes, not our own. The truth is, God's favor is not something we can earn. It's not something we can manipulate or control through our own efforts. It's a gift that is freely given to those who walk in obedience to Him, who seek His wisdom above all else. It is in this obedience that we find true peace, true fulfillment, and true devotion. As you stand at the crossroads of your own life, facing decisions that seem impossible, I urge you to pause. Before you speak, before you act, before you commit, ask God for wisdom. Don't let impulsive thoughts or a desire to prove yourself guide your actions. Seek the guidance of the one who knows the end from the beginning. Allow His wisdom to shape your words, your promises, your commitments. And when you seek His wisdom, trust that He will provide it. The Bible promises that if any of us lacks wisdom, we should ask of God, and He will give it generously. But asking for wisdom isn't just about seeking it when we face challenges. It's about living with a heart that is constantly in tune with God's voice. It's about making wisdom a daily part of our lives, not just an emergency response when things go wrong. True wisdom comes from knowing the heart of God, from understanding His will, and from aligning our desires with His. It's about seeking His guidance in every area of our lives, from the smallest decision to the biggest sacrifice. And this wisdom, chosen ones, is what will protect you. It will guide you away from making rash promises and commitments that you might regret later. It will shield you from the pain of empty sacrifices, from the disappointment of unmet expectations, and from the brokenness of misguided zeal. Wisdom helps you to see the bigger picture, to understand the consequences of your words and actions, and to choose paths that lead to life and peace. As you navigate this journey, let wisdom refine you. Let it burn away the thoughts that cloud your judgment, the actions that spring from fear or pride, and the desires that do not align with God's purposes for you. Let it purify your heart and mind and set you on a course that leads to healing, restoration, and fulfillment. Remember, it is not by our own strength that we walk this path, but by the strength and wisdom that God provides. I urge you, chosen ones, to be mindful of the cost before you make a vow. It's easy to make promises in the heat of the moment, but are you ready to follow through? Are you prepared for what will come? Jesus Himself warned us to count the cost before we begin any endeavor. It is so important to understand the weight of our words, to be intentional with our commitments, and to recognize that everything we say and do carries consequences. This is why seeking God's wisdom is not just important, it is essential. Now more than ever, we need wisdom to guide us in a world that often encourages impulsive decisions and immediate gratification. We live in a time when everything moves quickly and we are constantly bombarded with information and it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. But I want you to remember this. When you take the time to seek God's wisdom, you are aligning yourself with His eternal plan for your life. You are stepping into a place of peace and security that transcends anything this world can offer. As you reflect on your own life, ask yourself, are you listening for God's voice? Are you allowing His wisdom to guide your every step? Or are you rushing ahead, acting out of your own desires, without considering the cost of your words and actions? It's time to slow down, to pause, and to seek God's will with all your heart. The answers you need are not far off. They are found in the quiet moments, in the stillness of seeking His presence. Remember, wisdom is not just about knowing what to do. It's about knowing God deeply, trusting Him fully, and following Him obediently. It's about making decisions that honor Him, that reflect His character, and that lead to life, not destruction. And when you walk in His wisdom, you will find yourself in places of peace and restoration, surrounded by His favor and grace. So, as you continue on your journey, I invite you to join with me in prayer. Let us ask for wisdom. Let us commit our hearts to God, and let us trust in His guidance every step of the way. If this message has touched your heart, I encourage you to comment 99 and to subscribe to our channel, Path of Truth. Together, we will walk this path of wisdom, and we will see the transformation that comes when we fully surrender our hearts to God. As we stand at the crossroads of our lives, seeking to understand the full depth of what it means to walk in obedience to God's will, we must first come to a place of deep reflection. The journey we undertake is not one of impulsiveness or rash decisions, but of careful, intentional steps that reflect a heart aligned with the wisdom of the Creator. When we look at the story of Jephthah, we see not just the impact of a rash vow, but the consequence of not understanding the weight of our words and the cost of our commitments. It is in this space, this moment of pause, that we must ask ourselves, are we truly prepared to follow God's will, no matter where it leads? Too often, we live in a world that values quick action, immediate results, and the appearance of success. We are taught to push forward, to take risks without fully considering the cost, and to prove our devotion through extreme measures. But as we have seen through the lens of Jephthah's story, these actions, when not guided by wisdom, can lead to unintended and irreversible consequences. This is not a message of condemnation, but rather an invitation to stop and reflect before we make promises, before we speak vows, before we take steps that may lead us into paths of regret. God calls us to be His vessels of wisdom, to be instruments of His peace and His will. But in order to be truly effective in this mission, we must first understand that our devotion to Him is not demonstrated by how much we are willing to sacrifice or how extreme our actions are. True devotion is measured by our willingness to listen to Him, to follow His voice even when it doesn't make sense, and to trust Him with the decisions that shape our lives. This kind of devotion comes from a heart that has surrendered itself to God, a heart that seeks His will above all else, no matter the cost. It is a devotion rooted not in human strength or zeal, but in a deep, abiding trust in the goodness and sovereignty of God. And as chosen ones, we are called to walk in a way that reflects God's character, to speak words that carry the weight of His wisdom and truth, and to make promises that are aligned with His purposes. The words we speak are not just sounds. They are powerful declarations that have the potential to shape our lives and the lives of those around us. So when we speak, when we make promises, when we commit to a path, we must first consider, is this aligned with God's will for my life? Am I speaking out of wisdom or out of impulsiveness? Am I following His guidance, or am I trying to prove something to myself or to others? The foundation of our lives must be built on the wisdom that comes from above. In the book of James, we are reminded that if we lack wisdom, we can ask God, and He will give it generously. This is not just a promise for moments of crisis, but a constant invitation to seek His guidance in all things. Wisdom is not just about making the right choices in difficult moments. It is about learning to live a life that is consistently guided by God. It is about building our lives on the foundation of His truth, His love, and His understanding, and allowing those things to shape our actions, our words, and our commitments. But seeking wisdom requires more than simply asking for it in a moment of need. It requires a posture of humility, a willingness to listen, and a heart that is willing to wait for God's response. In a world that is constantly moving and pushing us toward immediate results, waiting on God's wisdom can feel uncomfortable. But it is in the waiting that we learn to trust, to let go of our own desires and timelines, and to allow God to work in us and through us in His perfect timing. True wisdom is not simply a matter of acquiring knowledge. It goes far deeper than that. Wisdom is rooted in a profound understanding of the heart of God and aligning our lives with His divine purposes. It is not merely about knowing facts, doctrines, or theories, but about coming to know God on a personal and intimate level. When we seek to understand Him more deeply, we begin to see the world through His eyes, and in that clarity, we gain the ability to make decisions that are not just logical, but also aligned with His will. This is the kind of wisdom that transforms our lives, guiding us through the complexities of life and leading us toward true fulfillment. The pursuit of wisdom is a journey that requires intentionality, patience, and openness to God's guidance. It is a process of learning to hear His voice, to discern His leading, and to allow His truth to shape our hearts and minds. In this pursuit, we begin to understand the weight of the words we speak and the commitments we make. Wisdom teaches us to count the cost before we make a vow, to consider the consequences of our actions, and to weigh our words carefully before they leave our lips. It is a call to recognize the gravity of the promises we make, knowing that our words hold power to either build up or tear down. This type of wisdom doesn't come from our own understanding, nor can it be obtained through sheer effort or willpower. It is a gift that is freely given by God to those who seek it with humble hearts. As the scriptures tell us, if we lack wisdom, we are invited to ask God for it, and He will give it generously to us without reproach. God's wisdom is not reserved for the elite or the scholarly. It is available to all who are willing to ask and to trust in His ability to guide them. When we live in wisdom, we are no longer driven by impulse, emotion, or selfish desires. Instead, we are guided by the steady, unwavering hand of God. His wisdom becomes the compass by which we navigate the choices and challenges of life. We learn to pause before acting, to seek His direction, and to trust that His way is always the best way. Wisdom leads us to a place of careful discernment, where we are able to make decisions that are in harmony with God's will, even when they are difficult or contrary to our own desires. In the story of Jephthah, we see a powerful example of the consequences of acting without wisdom. Jephthah's vow, made in a moment of zeal, was not guided by God's wisdom, but by his own impulsiveness. As a result, he faced tragic consequences, and his rash decision cost him dearly. This serves as a reminder to us of the importance of seeking God's wisdom in all that we do. When we act without wisdom, we risk making decisions that may lead to regret and harm. But when we seek God's wisdom and allow His truth to guide our actions, we position ourselves for peace, fulfillment, and the blessing of walking in alignment with His will. True wisdom also teaches us to be patient and to trust in God's timing. In our fast-paced world, it is easy to be impatient and to want immediate answers or solutions. But wisdom teaches us to wait on the Lord, to trust that He knows what is best for us, and that His timing is perfect. As we wait for His guidance, we grow in our understanding of His faithfulness and His ability to work all things together for our good. Ultimately, wisdom leads us to a life of peace and contentment, a life that is in tune with God's will. It frees us from the anxiety and uncertainty that comes from making decisions based on our own limited understanding. Instead, it empowers us to make choices that bring us closer to God and to the life He desires for us. It is through wisdom that we learn to live with purpose and intention, knowing that each step we take is guided by the hand of our loving Father. As we seek God's wisdom, we are invited into a deeper relationship with Him. It is through this relationship that we come to know His heart more fully, and in that knowledge, we find the clarity and strength to live out His will in our lives. Wisdom, therefore, is not just about making better decisions. It is about becoming more like Christ, reflecting His love, His truth, and His character in all that we do. When we walk in wisdom, we not only experience the blessings of God's guidance, but we also become a light to others, drawing them closer to His truth and love. So let us seek wisdom, not as a mere tool for decision-making, but as a way of living that reflects the heart of God. Let it guide us in every area of our lives, shaping our words, our actions, and our relationships. Let wisdom be the foundation upon which we build our lives, and let it lead us to a place of peace, fulfillment, and divine purpose. And in all things, may we trust in God's wisdom, knowing that He will never lead us astray. As we reflect on the story of Jephthah, it's understandable to feel a sense of trepidation or discouragement. Jephthah's rash vow and the tragic consequences of his decisions can easily lead us to believe that if we, too, make the wrong choice, we will face similarly disastrous outcome. However, it is essential to understand that this is not the core of the message conveyed by his story. The message is not one of fear, nor should it cause us to shrink back from making decisions altogether. Instead, it calls us to a deeper awareness of the responsibility that comes with the words we speak and the promises we make. The story of Jephthah serves as a stark reminder of how crucial it is to consider the weight of our words, the seriousness of the vows we take, and the consequences of our actions. But more importantly, it underscores the profound truth that God's wisdom is available to us at all times, and that we have the ability to make decisions that are grounded in His truth. If we understand that God desires to guide us with His infinite wisdom, we can approach life's choices with a sense of confidence and peace, knowing that He will not lead us astray. This is where the difference lies. It's not about being paralyzed by fear of making a mistake, but about developing a deep reliance on God's guidance and seeking His wisdom before we speak or act. God does not expect us to navigate life's decisions in isolation or with our own limited understanding. He invites us to seek Him earnestly for wisdom, knowing that He will grant it generously when we ask in faith. This is a call to live thoughtfully, to pause before we speak, to reflect before we act, and to always inquire of God before we make any promises or commitments. In the story of Jephthah, we see the dangers of acting impulsively and without considering the consequences of our words. Jephthah's vow was made out of a deep desire to secure God's favor, but it was not rooted in God's will or wisdom. His mistake was not that he made a vow, but that he made it without seeking God's guidance first. This serves as a powerful lesson for us. When we make decisions based on our own zeal, without taking the time to seek God's wisdom, we risk walking down paths that led to pain and However, when we choose to trust in God's wisdom and follow His guidance, we can walk confidently, knowing that His path leads to peace and fulfillment. The heart of the message, then, is not about fearing the consequences of our mistakes, but rather about embracing the wisdom that God offers us. He is a loving Father who desires to guide us with His truth. When we commit to seeking His will, we position ourselves to make decisions that are aligned with His purposes, decisions that will lead us to a life that reflects His love and His truth. As we face the many decisions that life presents, we are not left to rely on our own understanding or strength. Instead, we can lean on God's wisdom, which is always available to us. When we choose to walk in His wisdom, we are choosing to walk in His love, His peace, and His guidance. This is a life that is filled with purpose and clarity, a life that reflects His will and brings glory to His name. In the end, the story of Jephthah is a reminder of the importance of being thoughtful, intentional, and wise in our actions and words. It is not about living in fear of making mistakes, but about living with a deep awareness of the responsibility we carry and the wisdom that God is eager to provide. When we seek His wisdom, we can trust that He will guide us, protect us, and lead us on a path that leads to life. So let us commit to seeking His guidance, to trusting in His wisdom, and to making decisions that are rooted in His truth. As we do, we will experience the peace and fulfillment that come from walking in His will. One of the greatest gifts that God offers to us is the gift of wisdom. It is not merely a tool we seek when we face challenges or difficult circumstances, but a continuous gift that God desires for us to receive and embrace throughout our entire lives. Wisdom is a divine gift that invites us to walk with understanding, discernment, and clarity in every moment. It isn't limited to moments of crisis or when we are at crossroads. Rather, it is something we are called to pursue in both the ordinary and extraordinary moments of our daily existence. When we actively seek wisdom, we are choosing to position ourselves on a path that leads to true life. Life is filled with countless choices and decisions, and the wisdom of God helps guide us through these choices with a sense of purpose and intent. Without wisdom, we can easily fall into the trap of impulsiveness, reacting to situations based on our emotions or limited understanding. In those moments, our decisions may not align with the truth or the long-term peace that God desires for us. But wisdom, when sought and embraced, provides a steady compass that guides us in the right direction, leading us away from fleeting distractions and toward lasting fulfillment. God's wisdom is a light that shines brightly, illuminating the path we are meant to walk. It is not a wisdom that we earn or achieve on our own. It is a gift given freely by God to those who seek Him with a sincere heart. This wisdom reflects God's nature, His love, His truth, and His perfect understanding of what is best for us. When we choose to walk in His wisdom, we are essentially choosing to live in alignment with His will, allowing His presence to shape our thoughts, decisions, and actions. Walking in wisdom means living intentionally, being thoughtful about the choices we make, and trusting that God's guidance is leading us toward a life that is full of peace, joy, and fulfillment. It doesn't mean that we won't face challenges or difficult moments, but rather that in those moments we have the assurance that we are equipped with the understanding and perspective we need to navigate through them with grace. As we seek God's wisdom, we can trust that He will lead us on a path that not only leads to life, but also to a life that is abundant in His love and truth. So, as you reflect on your own life, I encourage you to take a moment and consider where you are. Are you walking in obedience to God's will? Are you speaking words that are aligned with His wisdom? Are you making promises and commitments that reflect? If not, I invite you to pause, to ask for wisdom, and to seek God's guidance. Know that He is ready and willing to give you the wisdom you need to navigate your life with purpose and clarity. And as you seek His wisdom, trust that He will lead you to the right path, that He will guide your steps, and that He will empower you to live a life that reflects His glory. The world we live in is often filled with distractions, noise, and confusion, but in the midst of it all, God's wisdom stands as a beacon of light. It is a light that shines in the darkness, a light that leads us to peace and understanding. When we seek His wisdom, we are choosing to follow that light, to walk in the clarity of His truth, and to live in a way that honors Him. I invite you, chosen ones, to commit to living a life of wisdom. Seek God's guidance in every decision you make, from the smallest choices to the largest commitments. Let your words reflect His heart, let your actions be rooted in His truth, and let your promises be grounded in obedience to His will. And as you do, trust that He will guide you, that He will lead you to the place of peace and fulfillment that He has prepared for you. If this message has touched your heart, I encourage you to comment 99 below and subscribe to our channel, Path of Truth. Together we can walk this path of wisdom, seeking God's guidance in every step and sharing the light of His truth with the world around us. May His wisdom guide you today and always. Amen.